A white car drives through the city, navigating the busy roads. Then, he starts tailing another car towards the secluded area and bumps into it. The driver gets out of the car and asks the young man why he has to drive so fast at night. The driver takes pictures of the damages while the young man tells him, "There's no need for that." The driver says it's crucial for insurance claims and returns to take more pictures. The young man suddenly attacks him with a knife, stabs him several times inside his car, and kills him brutally. Tae-suk, a cop, and his colleague are on their way to investigate the murder. While stuck in the traffic, they see some familiar thugs. Tae-suk immediately gets out of the car and goes inside, ignoring the thugs' displeasure at seeing him. One of them tries to bribe him but gets assaulted for it. Next, we see a hefty guy with full-body tattoos taking on the punching bag like a pro. He is Dong-soo, a gang leader. His right-hand man Oh-sung comes in and informs him that the cop guy is here. He stops his practice, and as the guys take down the punching bag, blood splashes out and a body pops out of the bag. Tae-suk arrests one of Dong-soo's men on account of the illegal conversion of gift cards. Dong-soo calls Tae-suk's commanding officer and tells him to get Tae-suk off from meddling in his business, as he is paid a hefty amount by him to run his business smoothly without being interfered with by the police. Tae-suk gets a call from his boss, but he tells him he is going to the crime scene and hangs up. Tae-suk reaches the spot and checks out the crime scene. He sees the dent at the back of the car and tells his colleague, Seo-jin, that he suspects it to be the work of a serial killer. Dong-soo visits another rival gang member, Sang-do, and has some disagreements with him over how to split territories. Oh-sung and Sang-do's right-hand man, Moon-sik, get into a scuffle. Dong-soo punches Oh-sung and pulls out Moon-sik's teeth for interrupting them. At the police station, they discuss the motives of the murder committed. The police chief concludes that it is a robbery-homicide, but Tae-suk begs to differ and shows him evidence of 3 different murders that have taken place in the same manner with the same weapon. He says the murderer is a serial killer, but his senior does not believe him and berates him instead. After the meeting, Dong-soo decides to drive himself home as he is sober. On the way, he is on the phone with his boss, when suddenly his car is hit from behind. He gets down, takes a look at his car, and tells the guy to move along. As he turns, he is suddenly attacked and stabbed from behind. He retaliates and they both have a gruesome fight. Dong-soo manages to stab the guy in the chest as well, but before he can find out who the guy is, he gets in his car and runs over him, leaving Dong-soo severely injured and motionless. Next, we see him being wheeled into the hospital. Furious, Dong-soo's men assume the attack was by the rival gang, leading to a counterattack. Led by Oh-sung, they storm into their rival gang Sang-do's place, and a brutal fight ensues. But Sang-do's right hand, Moon-sik, escapes through the window. Somewhere, in the middle of nowhere, the killer treats his wound himself. He then goes out and kills a dog from the many that are barking. When the puppy mill owner comes out to check, he kills him too using the same knife. Meanwhile, Dong-soo tells Oh-sung that the attacker is not affiliated with a rival gang, as his actions seem random and without purpose. He writes down the car number of the killer and gives it to Oh-sung to find out the details. He is then visited by Tae-suk, but Dong-soo refuses to give out any details. Frustrated, Tae-suk drives to the place where Dong-soo's car is parked and is convinced that it's the same killer as before when he sees the rear-end collision. Later, Sang-do visits Dong-soo and asks for compensation for his men who were attacked earlier. He also asks for more business deals, but when Dong-soo refuses, he embarrasses him and walks away. At the police station, Tae-suk requests his boss to give him the murder case and promises to catch the killer. But his boss refuses, saying the case belongs to another jurisdiction. While the killer is busy killing a truck driver, Dong-soo describes the killer's face as an expert draws it. He gives it to Oh-sung and tells him to find him before the cop does. After killing the man, the killer drives off with his truck. Meanwhile, Tae-suk and his team raid Dong-soo's illegal slot arcade in an attempt to interrogate Dong-soo about the person who attacked him. Tae-suk meets Dong-soo and asks him to give more information about the attacker as he has seen his face. He adds that the attacker is a serial killer who attacks and kills random people, and more people will die if he is not caught soon. Meanwhile, Dong-soo's business is taking a hit after the incident. Oh-sung informs him that with weird rumors flying around after the accident, investors are delaying their funding and clients are pulling out. He adds that Sang-do's men are also moving in their turf. When asked about the killer's car, he tells him that they found the car and also found the knife with which the killer killed another man in the truck, about 3 kilometers away from where his car was parked. He asks Oh-sung to hold on to the knife. Dong-soo eventually informs the findings to Tae-suk, and they decide to team up to catch the killer. Dong-soo needs to take care of the killer as this incident has made a dent in his personal reputation that is now hurting his business. Dong-soo agrees to provide manpower and money to Tae-suk provided they share information and findings, and on the condition that the killer belongs to whoever finds him first. Dong-soo wants to kill him for revenge, while Tae-suk wants to arrest him in order to solve 5 connected murder cases. Tae-suk and Dong-soo both brief their men and plan their actions. It turns out that they both plan to use each other to leverage. Tae-suk's plan is to lock up Dong-soo once the killer is caught, and Dong-soo plans to utilize Tae-suk's expertise to find the killer. While Tae-suk's team starts working on finding any vital information, Dong-soo orders Oh-sung to finish off Sang-doo with the killer's knife they found, which already has traces of the killer's previous victim's blood. In doing so, he will not be blamed for Sang-doo's death, but the murder will be directed to the serial killer. Tae-suk meets Seo-jin and requests her to run a test on the sample blood and hair found in the killer's car. When she asks him what it is about, he just tells her it's nothing important. In the next scene, Sang-doo's body is wrapped in a body bag and Seo-jin takes pictures of the crime scene. She finds it weird that the killer has left the weapon for them to see. In the briefing room, the chief of police is furious and berates everyone for their incompetency. He tells them to get out in the streets and solve the case. As everyone gets out of the room, Tae-suk gets a call from Seo-jin and gives him a piece of her mind for lying to her. She tells him that the hair and blood sample he gave her to run a test has the DNA of the murdered victims. The knife used to kill gang leader Sang-doo has the DNA of the truck driver and the puppy mill owner. Enraged, Tae-suk goes to Dong-soo's house and confronts him about killing Sang-doo, which leads to a bit of a scuffle between them. The news of the serial killer flashes all over the news, and as the killing is confirmed to be a serial killer's work, the case is transferred to the major case squad. Meanwhile, a group of people are eating in silence as the news of the gang leader's murder is on. A guy intensely listens to the news and says, "But this wasn't my doing." Later, Dong-soo and his men attend Sang-doo's funeral and pay his condolences to Moon-sik. During dinner, the killer eats a few tables away, eyeing Dong-soo. He goes up to Moon-sik and gives him a note looking at Dong-soo. The note says, "Someone else used my knife to kill Sang-doo." The killer then goes and kills another man, dumps his body in the booth and drives off in his car. While checking the killer's car for evidence, Tae-suk tells Dong-soo that if they do not catch the killer before the major case squad, they will be screwed. While they are at it, they hear a commotion and are attacked by Sang-doo's henchmen led by Moon-sik. A brutal fight ensues with the rivals attacking them with weapons. Though outnumbered, they manage to overpower the rivals. But Moon-sik attacks them with a knife, and after quite a fight with Tae-suk, he gets stabbed in the chest, leaving Tae-suk in a state of shock. Dong-soo tells him to go while he clears the scene and buries the body. Meanwhile, Tae-suk is assigned a kidnapping case, despite his insisting on continuing the murder case. Tae-suk and his team are tracking a call from the kidnapper to the victim's wife. He tells her to come to a particular place with the ransom. She lands up in a small eatery joint, and as she enters the place, the owner asks her if she is there to drop off the bag and takes it from her. Tae-suk is in a building watching and videotaping, but as she turns to look at him, he hides, trying not to alert the kidnapper. As he gets up, he sees a guy watching him and starts pursuing him, alerting his team. They pursue him for quite a bit, but he manages to get away. Then, they go back to the eatery and interrogate her, but find nothing significant. Later, Seo-jin gives Tae-suk the fingerprint test results of the knife and the steering wheels. She says the person might have tampered with the fingerprint, but it tracks back to a missing person. He goes to the address provided and chats with the landlady. He then goes inside his apartment to investigate further, but is welcomed by an unpleasant sight. Books about death and raising a monster, medicines, and chemicals he uses to temper his fingerprints. Then he finds pictures of the killer and his family. He takes out the painted image, compares it to confirm, and links it to the kidnapping guy he pursued earlier. Meanwhile, one of Dong-soo's business associates has been taunting him, and finally, he decides to give the guy some life lessons. He gets a call from Tae-suk and plays the recording of the kidnapper's phone call, confirming that the killer, as well as the kidnapper, is the same person they are hunting for. During the briefing with Dong-soo and Tae-suk's team, we get to know that the killer is Kang Kyung-ho, 35 years old, abused as a child by his father, and grew up in an orphanage. Now that they have the information on the killer, they are all geared up to hunt him down. They send out their men to every corner of the city, checking cheap motels, inns, studio apartments, and short rentals. During the day, they scour the marketplace, downtown, terminals, and other public areas. But they seem to be hunting for a ghost. As Dong-soo is waiting to be picked up, a schoolgirl comes without an umbrella, so he gives his. Later, all of them are having dinner, drinking, and having light conversations when the news flashes about a schoolgirl's murder. Dong-soo recognizes the umbrella he gave her earlier. Dinner is cut short and they all rush to find the killer. An intense search is carried out in the vicinity where the girl was murdered. Finally, Oh-sung and Tae-suk's Jr. find the place where the killer is staying. But when they get to the room, he isn't there. In an attempt to catch the killer first, both teams make their respective plans. In their cars, they wait for the killer to come back. After a while, they see a white car driving in slowly and they see the killer in the steering wheels. The car comes to a halt but takes off. Tae-suk and Dong-soo both pursue the killer in their cars. They chase the killer's car for quite a bit in the small lanes when finally, Dong-soo ramps into both the killer's and Tae-suk's cars in an intersection. But when they check the car, the killer has already fled the scene. They continue their chase on foot and decide to spread out. As they continue to search the bylanes, Oh-sung is suddenly attacked with a knife, stabbed several times, and walks off. Hearing the screams, Dong-soo finds him severely injured. Oh-sung tells him the direction and he goes after him. He tracks his blood to a karaoke bar and finally finds him in a room. He punches the killer through the door and strikes him until he is knocked out. He then drags him out and calls Tae-suk and tells him the killer is his and hangs up. Tae-suk asks his team to track Dong-soo's location. Meanwhile, Dong-soo has the killer tied up in a chair and brutally tortures him while the killer still taunts him. He finally picks up a cleaver and tells him that he is going to chop him up into pieces. Tae-suk gets the location of Dong-soo from his team and he drives like a madman. Dong-soo takes the position to behead the killer, and just as he is about to strike, he gets ramped into by Tae-suk. He takes the tape out from the killer, shoves him in his car, and drives off, leaving Dong-soo lying on the floor unconscious. With a triumphant look, he takes the killer inside the station as everyone watches in awe. The following day, the news of the arrested serial killer is all over the place. Then, we see the killer in the hospital room eating away at his glory while he watches the news. Dong-soo, on the other hand, laughs with frustration as the police crack down on his slot machine arcades. He is currently wanted by the police. Later, the killer is interrogated by Tae-suk and a lawyer, but he denies it. He subtly lets them know that he is the killer, but he beats around the bush and keeps mocking them as the police don't have solid evidence. Frustrated and angry, Tae-suk attacks him. On the day of the trial, he denies everything and tells the court that if they sentence him to death without proper evidence, it's murder. While on the verge of the killer winning the case, Dong-soo walks in, ready to testify. We see a flashback of Tae-suk being beaten up by Dong-soo for coming to him after what he has done. Tae-suk begs him to surrender to the police and testify against the killer, or the killer will walk free. He even threatens to release a tape of Dong-soo's confession of having Sang-doo killed if he does not testify. Back at the court, Dong-soo narrates about the night he was stabbed and shows his wound marks. He also tells the judge about the presence of a stab wound on the killer's chest that he inflicted during the fight. To further his plan, Dong-soo plants misleading evidence that implicates the killer in Sang-doo's murder. As a result, the court sentences the killer to death. However, Dong-soo's own involvement in illegal activities leads to his arrest as well. In a grand ceremony, Tae-suk and the others are promoted while Dong-soo is sent to the same prison where the killer is being held, a condition Dong-soo demanded in exchange for his testimony and eventual arrest. As Dong-soo catches sight of the killer, a satisfied grin spreads across his face as he enters the prison. Later, while the killer is in the shower, Dong-soo approaches him with a rope in hand and a sinister smile, ready to confront his nemesis.